I have Mr. Gbenga Adigun here. Hello, sir, and welcome to the Market Report Show.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Right. Now, before I get you on board on the real estate construction sector in Nigeria, Mr. Gbenga, you're also a big player on the Nigerian stock market. Something great has happened in the last couple of days, whereby SEC has now come out with a framework for digital and virtual assets in Nigeria. Although players like you, I know you and some of your guys may eventually get in to play on with SEC. 30 million registration for digital firm and 2 billion capital requirement. Mr. Gbenga, let's have your reaction on this.
Yes, it's an interesting proposed framework. It's just a proposition, yet to finally come to life. So what SEC is saying is that if you want to run a big digital money business, you need enough money, you need insurance and permission so that at the end, customers are safe. So, these digital firms help Nigerians to buy, sell, or issue digital assets or safely keep their digital assets, such as cryptocurrencies, stable coins, and other tokenized investments. So what SEC is saying is, let's put a framework to this. Before now, it was about the slow regulatory adoption of digital assets. The regulators have been a bit slow, but again, it's very difficult to regulate what you don't understand. But now that they are seeing that there's not much they can do, the technology won't wait for anybody.
Exactly.
They have to finally come up with a framework that can, absorb these people and watch what they are doing. So 30 million to register, 2 billion naira capital. Some other digital asset platforms will need as high as 500 million naira. And all these firms will need insurance, pay an ongoing supervision fees, and also, give investors clearer risk warnings. So I think it's a good thing overall. It's very important that this is happening now. It has its own very, very, very big ripple effect on the economy when this framework is adopted. There have been lots of scams, for example, in this particular digitized asset space. So putting a very strict regulatory framework in place would help to, for example, limit or reduce these scams and then increase investor confidence in this sector of the economy. And even the government too has a lot to achieve from it. Jobs will be created, investments will come in, tax collections and tax revenues will come. And then there'll be smarter ways to pay. Even you can extrapolate the advantages to international remittances. You have cheaper international payments. People can buy and sell more easily. And there'll be job creation. There'll be more financial inclusion that the government has been making a lot of, noise about. Not noise in a bad way, very good way. And better price discovery. So many, too numerous to recount. So it's a welcome development. We are waiting to see how it's going to play out.
Exactly. And before we move into our main discussion, another quick one. On the part of players in this digital asset aspect, I know you may have one or two people. Are they set? Are they ready for this new environment that SEC is planning for all of them?
Yes, the very serious ones, I must say, are ready because, to my knowledge, some of them are part of the policy formulation. They've been going in and out of Abuja to discuss these things with SEC, say, okay, we are here, this is what we want to do, regulate us so that there can be more investor confidence. We can raise money, we can drive adoption of digital assets. We can extrapolate the use of, blockchain technology, for example, in other aspects of the economy, as we're going to later discuss, like, in titling of properties and the rest of it, and how all of that is going to tie into the larger financial economy. So yes, the very serious ones, I think, are ready. They would have to come up with the capital if they don't have it. And it's easier to tell an investor that this is what I'm raising money for. I want to meet the capital requirement of 2 billion so that I can do more business and I can attract even further investment later. So yes, they would have to, is something that at this point in time, every serious player in that space has to look at and try as much as possible to be compliant.
Exactly. Now, interesting, a very, deep perspective coming from you. Let's now move into the real estate and construction sector of Nigeria. It was recalled that the construction sector of Nigeria grew by 5.53, and as well as the real estate also grew by 3.78. Mr. Gbenga, you are also a player in that sector. Take us through this growth and boom we are seeing in the construction and real estate sector, how has it been like for a player like you? And just give us an insight on it, sir.
Okay. These numbers are impressive. These numbers are good. These numbers shows growth. These numbers shows that there is hope. It also shows that some form of capital is coming into the sector. However, we have to be honest. Nigeria exactly does not have a housing deficit. What I mean by that is, if we solve some problems, 3 or 4 problems, the housing deficits would reduce or disappear. So Nigeria's real estate story is not about just buildings. It's about population, productivity, and national wealth. Because every house constructed activates, cement, steel, transport, banking, insurance, and the rest of it. But now, if we fix 3 or 4 problems, for example, before we mention housing deficits, we must mention infrastructure deficits. We must mention title deficits. There's a big problem in the titling of lands in Nigeria. We must mention long-term finance deficits. If we solve these 3 problems alone, then housing in Nigeria will become one of the most powerful engines that would even contribute more to the GDP of the country. So it's not just about these numbers, we grew by 4%, we grew by, how is it translating to keys eventually being handed to families? How is it translated to new offices being opened? How is it translating to new warehouses, new infrastructure that will support the growth? So it's a very interesting thing to look at. The government has been talking a lot about the $1 trillion GDP economy. Housing is one of the biggest ways this target can be unlocked.
This is very deep. Now, on the aspect of unlocking some of these aspects of the investment, for you, who is also a sector player, what will you propose to unlock Nigerian housing investment opportunity?
Fantastic question. It's a bit about the things I've mentioned before, which is fixed infrastructure, fixed titling, and then also fixed long-term financing. We don't have that. Those 3 things. That is number 1. Number 2, the estimates vary widely depending on the data source that you are looking at. The housing deficit in Nigeria is from anything between 15 million units to 28 million units, depending on who is talking to you. However, to close that gap, about 500,000 homes must be delivered every year for the next 10 years. And again, government finance or the government cannot do that alone. Let's even remove the finance aspect from government. But there are other things government can do that can drive or solve the housing deficit problem. For example, they can provide properly titled and serviced land. By titling, we know what it takes to just get adequate titling of land. You know what it means when you go to the bank and use your house as a collateral, for example, many years ago, and the bank has to take this document to the lands bureau to confirm the original of the title. It takes months, sometimes even years. You know what it means to transfer title from one person to the other, what it means to get your CFO. These are the things that, while that's why we are happy when we hear things like SEC now regulating digital assets. You can extrapolate the use of blockchain technology to provide faster, more transparent, more reliable titling services. That way, I know that if I'm buying a land, I'm not scared of tomorrow. Some people will call themselves Omonile. They'll come and chase me away. So then housing has to be properly categorized into social, affordable, rental, and commercial housing. It has to be very, very categorized so that we can solve each problem as they come per time. We also have to use standardized designs and bulk procurement. A very good example, if we go back to the 70s when Festac, I keep going back to Festac, one estates, all these estates were built, Maltu estates. They housed thousands of families. And these were easy, already approved, standardized designs that were just easy to replicate. We can also look at rent to own as a very good way of helping to drive home ownerships. Rent to own, pay rent, pay small, after some time it's yours. then the government can also give private developers bankable offtake agreements or guarantees. You know, say, okay, take this 500 acres of land, do this with it. Don't buy the land, we'll give you free CFO. Do guarantees and ring-fence it. And then hopefully, you can sell this and not make a loss. So again, to just wrap it up, housing deficit is not just about the social burden. If properly structured, it can really, really, give us a multi-trillion naira pipeline of homes, jobs, and infrastructure.
Interesting. You said something very key, which I'm taking you on now. The financing of housing in Nigeria. One of the big issues that developers, real estate experts have come on my show before you normally talk about is that financing is key. Although you talk about titling, we'll come back to that later, but financing of it properly. What do you make of the financing of Nigerian housing, and why is it that banks sometimes may be very reluctant to finance housing projects?
Amazing question. Capital is very expensive in this side of the world, both for private individuals and institutions. And of course, we know why that is so. It's always a dilemma for the CBN or the monetary policy people. If you want to drive growth, you have inflation to deal with. If you deal with inflation, you are stifling the economy. So it's always a continuous dilemma, However, developers can be more innovative around how they execute projects. For example, you can build in phases instead of trying to carry an entire project at once. You have a project to build 500 homes. Can you phase it and build 100 and finish the 100 and build it well? You would even increase the confidence of potential buyers that this is what we deliver. They are moving to phase 2. Then there should be more collaboration between financiers and developers. Instead of saying, I want to build these big estates with my name on it, can we come together and do something even bigger? There are also things to do, like looking for how to secure credible off-takers before a construction project starts. Another interesting thing we even look at is using localized materials. Can we use local materials to build? Can we adopt bulk purchasing, and also even use local expertise and engineers to build? There are some projects where, the engineers are imported and you're paying them as expatriates. It adds to the cost of executing these things. I know some people will talk about the skill set. Do we have it in Nigeria? The answer is yes, no matter what you want to build. And then something else is to look at how we can use infrastructure funds, even pension funds, and other project bonds to raise long-term capital. The biggest problem Nigerian developers and financiers are facing, or let me say developers are facing, is that they only have access to 12 months or 1 year money, 2 year money. But real estate needs patient capital. Real estate needs affordable capital in the long run. If you can get 5 year money, 10 year money, no single investor will give you that. But with things like guarantees from the government, with things like funding from pension assets that intergenerational debt obligations, then we can have access to this long-term capital. And then with that, Nigeria will be able to deliver affordable homes, because we cannot deliver affordable homes with unaffordable capital. There's also not affordable cement or affordable iron rod or reinforcement or affordable sand or affordable granite because of all these things that are going on. So funding is a big issue, and we have to innovate around how funding is being raised to execute real estate projects.
Interesting. Now, on the part of land titling or land ownership, recently I saw a report where the Minister of FCT, by Wike, signing over 26,000 CFOs, those documents that have to do with land titling in Abuja. But for most of the developers, they still say on the aspect of those land title documents to be a bit difficult. And you already said that. But what is the way out of this issue of land documents? And the Constitution already is specific on it. Land Use Act, many have kicked against it that we need to review it, we want to take a second look at it. But for you developers or real estate experts, what is your concern about the Land Use Act that is majorly tied to the title document of land in Nigeria?
Yes, good question. This is a problem we need to solve if we want to improve the housing problem in Nigeria. For example, there's something called the housing census. We all know the popular census to be number of people living in a defined geographical area. These houses in Nigeria, does the government really know the number? Do they really know that in Nigeria we have one, in Lagos State we have 1.5 million homes. In Ogun State we have 500,000 homes. In Abuja we have 800. They need to know these things. Number one, there has to be a proper housing census. You have to know the occupancy rates. There are many empty houses, especially here on the island, via Ikoyi and Lekki. If you have all this data, it can help you to come up with policies that can improve housing. There also has to be proper mapping and proper charting of the entire country. So they have to map, register, and verify all the land nationwide. Yes, if you go to the land bureau of any state, they will tell you they have these things. But we are not seeing how this data is helping to improve the housing problem. And we've also gone to places where, even on Google Maps here in this country, it's not properly mapped, it's not properly charted. And that's why the map gets confused and sometimes it gets missing. So the data is the first thing. Blockchain can help to solve that problem, which is why, again, I'm happy with the SEC framework that's been the SEC proposed framework. So that is one. Another issue with titling, or something else that can help with titling, is to just adopt technology. And it has to be transparent. If we are not transparent with our titling process, housing cannot develop. Everybody should be able to go to an alausa, for example, here in Lagos State. For example, a bank, say I have a borrowing customer. He has this property. He wants to use it to collateralize his borrowing. What is stopping the bank from getting a feedback within 24 hours? Why should it take 3 months? Why should it take 6 months? These are the places where blockchain can fix that problem. And with the right access, people can have access to know that, okay, this place is properly titled. It is owned by so and so. It was owned by these 5 people in the past. The historical record is there. It is now with this owner. It is encumbered. There's a court judgment on it, or the case is in court, or it's already servicing a loan in one bank or the other. These are the things that will bring confidence. And then you see investment pouring in. So titling is a big issue, but it's something that technology can solve. And when that problem is solved, then the housing deficits will shrink dramatically.
It's interesting. I really love the way you put it in a way that if we solve some of those problems, the housing deficit problem in Nigeria will solve. But let's take a look at one of the issues that developer real estate sector experts have raised, the high cost of building material. Mr. Gbenga, I know you definitely want to talk about it, although let's quickly take it right now. High cost of building material. What is the way out of this particular issue?
Again, is to use local materials. Some people have used red earth to mold blocks instead of using cement and sharp sand or granite dust or stone dust. Some people have used red earth to mold blocks, and these houses are even cooler. This is what our forefathers used to use in the past to build clay homes. And some of those houses are still standing today. So if you have an abundance of that material in your locality, maybe like Ogun State has a lot of red earth very near here in Lagos, even some places in Lagos State, can we adopt such materials to build wherever they can stand? I'm not saying you're going to use that to build a 5, 10, 15-story building. If you're building bungalows, why not? Why can't that work? So it's to look for local sources of material. It is very, very important to look at that. And then something else that, they can do with the rising cost of materials is to, this is where the government comes in, is to, if the capital, again, this is where capital also comes in. If capital is not so expensive, even when there are fluctuations in prices, and if capital is also patient enough, you would overall, in the long run, recover for any shock in the prices of materials. For example, in February, when war broke out in the Middle East around the Strait of Hormuz, diesel prices went from 900 to 2,000 naira per liter. That diesel price affected everything that is being hauled and carried about. There was an attendant inflation, ripple effect inflation, affecting everything. I don't even know if you call that imported inflation. So while we cannot control these things, what we can control is how do we raise the kind of capital? Is it cheaper? Is it patient? Even if it's not as cheap as we want it to be, can it stay long enough to give me time to recoup any exposures or any shocks? You know, and of course, guarantees from the government. The government can do things like providing land, providing external infrastructure. Because each developer today here in Lagos, they're almost not just building the homes, they are building the roads that lead to the homes. They are buying transformers with their own money. They are buying armored cables with their own money. They are bringing internet, they are bringing gas pipelines with their own money. These are things that, the government should have taken to reduce the cost of construction. The government is the largest spender in any economy. They should spend and support economic growth. So if this infrastructure is already there, it's because anything a developer does is going to pass that cost to the eventual off-taker. But if I'm not building the road that leads to my 50, 100 home estate, is less cost for me. And then I can sell lower. If I'm not doing NEPA, if I'm not buying 20 transformers, if I'm not doing all these things, it helps. So it's something that should be looked at. The private sector should provide capital, construction discipline, technology, and project management, while the government should provide land, external infrastructure, approvals, and targeted incentives. So in a successful, I'm talking about how public-private partnerships, government should make the project possible, not attempt to do every part of the project itself and leave the rest to the private sector.
Interesting. Mr. Gbenga, our time will not allow us to extend some of this discussion deeper. But before I let you go, on the part of average Nigerians who are looking out for homes, recently we saw the federal government of Nigeria going Chinese investors to also come into the real estate sector. And I read some reports where some experts in the sector, real estate developer, were a bit of showing concern that if the Chinese come in, is there enough, let me put it this, is there enough room for both the local investors and the Chinese investors that the federal government is trying to go into the Nigerian real estate sector?
There's more than enough space. If you are looking at announcing deficit of maybe 50 million homes, anybody from anywhere in the world can come in with capital. So it's not it's an investment opportunity that would stay for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And again, the housing will not move faster than infrastructure developments for me. So if the government has such access to collaborations and financing, I would suggest they rather focus all that resources on infrastructure building. If you build a road anywhere, people will come and build homes. The government has no business building homes anymore at this point in time. So they did it in 1977. We've not really seen a successful mass housing project, as they did in the 1970s and 1980s. So it's showing that that may not what we need to be waiting for. Let them do the infrastructure, lead with infrastructure, then private capital will come and finish it. Because you don't want to build isolated, beautiful estates that are surrounded by bad roads, flooding, and darkness. We need complete communities where homes are connected to jobs, transport, power, schools, healthcare, security, and other social infrastructure. And so this is a PPP effort. That is what can only make it work, in my own opinion. And again, finally, in closing, if Nigeria can turn land, that is the government, into bankable assets, then capital, if they can also turn capital into long-term mortgages and turn infrastructure into well-planned communities, then we will not be talking so much about housing deficits. We'll be creating jobs, deepening household wealth, and also building a foundation for a more productive economy, like the $1 trillion GDP economy we are looking at. So Nigeria's housing crisis is very enormous, but so is the investment opportunity. And the question is whether we will continue selling land or finally building functional cities. Is to make sure that at the end of the day, those opportunities are translated into handing keys to families and new businesses being opened.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Gbenga Adigun. I really like your ending, not just building cities, but handing keys to families. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show today, sir.